St. Matthew's second chapter, starting at the first verse. In the time of King Herod, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem asking, "Where is the child who was born to the King of the Jews? For we observed his star at its rising and have come to pay him homage." When King Herod heard this, he was frightened, and all Jerusalem with him. And calling together all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Messiah was to be born. They told him, "In Bethlehem of Judea, for so it has been written by the prophet, and you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judea, are by no means least among the rulers of Judea. For from you shall come a ruler who is the shepherd of my people Israel." Then Herod secretly called for the wise men and learned from them the exact time when the star appeared. Then he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, "Go and search for the child. When you have found him, bring me word so that I may go and pay him homage." When they had heard the king, they set out, and there ahead of them went the star that they had seen in its rising, until it stopped over the place where the child was. Then they saw the star had stopped. They were overwhelmed with joy. On entering the house, they saw the child with Mary his mother, and they knelt down and paid him homage. Then, opening their treasure chests, they offered him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they left for their own country by another road.
Grace and peace from God our Father and our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen. All right. I wanted to open with this one. I kind of thought this was fun. What would have ever happened if there were three wise women instead of three wise men? Some of you may have heard this before, and some are going, "I told you so." See, husband? Here's the answer that I found. They would have asked directions immediately upon commencing their trip, which would have allowed them to arrive on time, not a year later. They would have helped deliver the baby, cleaned the stable, made a casserole just like a good Lutheran would, and brought cute little outfits that the baby Jesus could have worn on his trip home. Some of you took a while, it's okay. Well, here we are. We've got a new year, so how's it going? Everybody doing okay in your first couple days, the 8 days of the new year? They haven't treated you too badly. You've gotten back to work, or if you're retired, you've gotten more work on your paperwork to do of your honey list, right? That honey-do. So you've added to it. New opportunities maybe in your future. You may have new beginnings that are happening. And how's that weight loss program going? Are you staying faithful and committed? Staying away from all that chocolate? Are you kidding? That's half the fun. We were down celebrating my grandma's birthday last night at Dutch Heritage, down at 97 and 71. And a little plug for them on YouTube. And the fun part was, I remember their salad bar. It's a wonderful salad bar. They got the best beets in the world. So Mom can vouch. I went back up my second round and got a whole plate of beets. They're just that good. But as I came back with my plate of beets, I also came back with a free piece of peanut butter pie. Well, I thought, do I really want to get this? I'm really kind of committed to get back in shape. We've got a brand new PFT program I got to get ready for at work. And do I really want to eat this peanut butter pie? Of course. And I picked the biggest piece. And it tasted so good. Well, you thought that was funny too. That's good. Well, I'd like to start out this morning with what I call a little metaphoric journey. And if you'll follow with me in this metaphoric journey, I think we'll have a little bit of fun. So what does your roadmap look like for 2012? We've already determined that the weight loss program, as I said, they only last about 30 days. Might as well throw that out with the bathwater. But does your life seem like you're driving in the mountains in 2012? Does it seem like you're going up the hill and down the hill? Up the hill and down the hill. And you've got this little Ford Ranger like I have. The best it can do going up the hill is 35 miles an hour. And going down the hill, you don't want it to go greater than 50 miles an hour. The thing might just fall apart. Does that seem like your life? Does that represent what you have been going through? You like this journey so far? Does your life seem like a Grand Canyon? You look at it and it's so deep. And the next thing you know is, how am I going to get to the bottom? And the only option, you have two options. You can either hike the whole way down or ride on the back of the donkey. Now, donkeys don't move very fast, do they? And as you finally get to the bottom, your butt hurts. And every other thing in you hurts. Does that seem like your life right now? Everything hurts, no matter what you do. Well, how many people feel like life is like a racetrack? You're going 1,000 miles an hour. It's Mach speed. You feel like you're Top Gun all over again. Life just flies right by. Where did the days go? Where did the time go? How did we ever get there so fast? So let me ask this one. Does your life seem like a cruise boat? You're just sailing along, no worries in the world, no concerns. Your life is totally handled by Thrivent. They've handled all your finances. They've made sure that your investments have yielded so much that you sit out on those one-deck chairs on the top of the cruise boat and have people bring you those tiki drinks. You're just living the dream. It's just all so peaceful and serene and no cares in the world. Is that your life for 2012? Some of you are going, boy, I sure wish. Well, you meet Thrivent afterwards, and I'm sure they will help you accomplish that dream. Well, you know, as we lead hectic lives, I think everybody in here can probably agree that your life can be a little hectic from time to time. Lots of demands put on you. You know, I was eating these words of my message last night at 2 o'clock in the morning with a bottle and my daughter and a nice wool blanket to stay warm. But you know, as I think about the wise men, it's kind of interesting, our gospel text today, we have to start asking some questions, don't we? The gospel text didn't answer a lot of these questions, nor does the Bible answer a lot of our questions about the wise men. Now, a lot of us, how many people know how many wise men were there? Anybody know the answer? Nobody knows. The world knows it as being 3, don't we? And in fact, I think if we look, do we have any wise men? The wise men went to lunch. We have 3 wise men. That's what we've all known in these nativity sets and all these things in life, but we don't know how many wise men there actually are. Were there 100 that traveled to see the baby Jesus? We don't know. And the question is, who were these guys? Where did they come from? We didn't do a background check on them like the state of Ohio requires. Who are these guys? Well, if we remember, they called them the Magi. And what did Magi stand for? It's our word today for magician. These guys were actually more astrology-based because they loved looking up to the stars. They loved looking up to the heavens. And if you remember, I talked about looking at the stars a couple weeks ago. We talked about the star of Bethlehem. So where did these guys come from? Some would probably say they came from Persia or Arabia or Babylon. But they don't know. Nobody seems to know who these guys were. And that mystery continues. But you know, the one thing we do know is these guys were very wise. Romans chapter 1, verse 20. Let's grab our Bibles. Romans chapter 1, verse 20. And then we're going to flip over to Psalms 19 right after that. So Romans chapter 1, verse 20 to get us started. The wise men were very wise because they were searching for Jesus. And I want to see these two verses so you can follow with me here. Romans chapter 1, verse 20. Hear these words. From the time the world was created, people have seen the earth and the sky and all that God made. They can clearly see His invisible qualities, His eternal power and divine nature. So they have no excuse whatsoever for not knowing God. There's no excuse for not knowing God. Let's turn over to Psalms 19, verse 1 through 6. Psalm 19, verse 1 through 6. Psalm 19, verse 1 through 6. Let's hear these words from the psalmist David. The heavens tell of the glory of God. The skies display His marvelous craftsmanship. Day after day they continue to speak. Night after night they make Him known. They speak without a sound or a word. Their voice is silent in the skies, yet their message has gone out to all the earth, and their words to all the world. This is the stars in the heavens. The sun lives in the heavens where God placed it. It bursts forth like a radiant bridegroom after his wedding. It rejoices like a great athlete eager to run the race. The sun rises at one end of the heavens and follows its course to the other end. Nothing can hide from its heat. Isn't that interesting that the wise men who followed all these stars, they saw the display and the wonder of Jesus Christ. They saw, they looked, they recognized, they studied, they knew how powerful God is just by simply looking up in the heavens where God placed all these wonderful things. I can only imagine what they thought. I can only imagine what they were thinking as they saw how everything was aligned. You know, I found it fascinating. I remember Dad, when he was in college, he would come home and had this stars course or whatever. He had astrology or whatever. And we would have to go out in the backyard and be able to pick out the Little Dipper and the Big Dipper and all the other dippers that are up there. You can tell I remembered a whole lot. But I found it fascinating as I looked up in the sky, and I still find it fascinating. How many people still look up into the sky when you see that first star, starlight, star bright? I wish I may, I wish I might, wish upon this star tonight. Or it sounds like it, how it's supposed to go. Does anybody still do that? Isn't it amazing how that all happens? But you know, the second thing these wise men knew is they recognized God at work. They recognized that God did all these wonderful things. But how would they have known that? But we read in Romans, they would know. You're funny. Uh-oh. Say we called him out. Yeah, you're right. But you know, it's funny. They didn't have answers. Or did they? All they had available to them was the Old Testament. What do they remember from the Old Testament? What do they know? The bad part is there were no writings on these men. But you know, the benefit that we have is the fact that we had the Old Testament, but we also had the New. We have the knowledge that sits in front of us, and that's why we open these Bibles in this congregation. Because this Word is what we have to follow from. This Word is what we, in this congregation, adhere to for our relationship with Jesus Christ. You know, I ask often, are you hungry for God? And I'm not talking going to the 7-Eleven or up to Subway sandwich shop or whatever other place you do to satisfy your hunger. I'm talking about that good, old-fashioned, lighting on fire soul hunger is my relationship with Christ. Is that what your hunger is all about when you come here? You know, the third thing that these wise men were in their wisdom was their searching for Christ. They followed that star. We don't know whether their journey took them 1,000 miles or 100 miles. And remember, they had to walk. So they didn't have their cars, they didn't have their bicycles, and all those things with wheels to get them where they needed to go. They had good old-fashioned foot power or donkey power. But, you know, some people said, well, hey, the wise men came a couple days after, the birth of Christ. No, they didn't. They came almost a year later after Christ's birth. That's what we know. Almost a year later, Mary, Joseph, and the baby Jesus are still in that stall, hanging out. Could you imagine staying in the barn, staying in a bed of hay for over a year? It'd be kind of prickly, wouldn't it? Not many blankets, and blankets are probably wool, so it's probably really scratchy. But no cream that they can put all over, and all those things that make babies smell good. But they were wise because they chased that star. But I can only imagine the ridicule these guys received. Here are the wise men. They're making their journey through, and as they're going along, people say, "Hey guys, where are you going?" "Oh, we're following a star." "You're following what?" "We're following a star." And they'll probably think, "Ooh, those guys are kind of weird. Wonder where they're headed. They probably need to go to the middle ward right down the road." But could you imagine the ridicule that they were under? Well, it seems like the ridicule that we're under, isn't it? How many people have been ridiculed in your life, in your Christian walk? As people come up to you and say, "Hey, where'd you go Sunday morning?" "Oh, I went down to that place there in Mifflin, 8:30 in the morning." And they're going, "You what? 8:30? Are you crazy? What are you doing that for?" "Well, because I want to go worship this Jesus." "You want to worship what?" Do you get ridiculed? Do you get questioned why you do what you do? Do you get questioned because you pray in public? But these wise men were wise because they followed. They knew what was before them. They didn't care about the ridicule. They didn't care about what other people thought. In fact, anybody that knows me very well, I don't put a lot of thought behind people that ridicule. You know what? You want to push my buttons? Go for it. Have fun. Because I'm a Jesus freak. I love him. And I'll let the whole world know. And it doesn't bother me a bit. That's what we have to do in our Christian walk. Don't worry about what other people think. Because they will have to answer for that thought. They will have to answer for their decision. But what I want them to see is Jesus. Is that being wise? I want to go to Matthew chapter 5. Let's open up to our final verse we're going to look up today. Matthew chapter 5, verse 1 through 11. Matthew chapter 5, verse 1 through 11. Let's talk about Jesus' Sermon on the Mount and Jesus' blessings and God's blessings in our lives. Matthew chapter 5, verses 1 through 11. Hear these words. One day as the crowds were gathering, Jesus went up the mountainside with his disciples and sat down to teach them. This is what he taught them. God blesses those who realize their need for him, for the kingdom of heaven is given to them. God blesses those who mourn, for they are comforted. God blesses those who are gentle and lowly, for the whole earth will belong to them. God blesses those who are hungry and thirsty for justice, for they will receive it in full. God blesses those who are merciful, for they will be shown mercy. God blesses those whose hearts are pure, for they will see God. God blesses those who work for peace, for they will be called the children of God. blesses those who are persecuted because they live for God, for the kingdom of heaven is theirs. God blesses you when you are mocked and persecuted and lied about because you are my followers, Jesus said. Be happy about it. Be glad about it, Jesus said. For a great reward awaits you in heaven. And remember, the ancient prophets were persecuted as well. You know, these wise men were wise because of a reason. And that is because of their faith. Faith is what got them through their journey. Faith is what got them up the mountain and down the mountain. Faith is what made them look at a canyon and go, you know, it's not so bad having to travel all the way down in there. Faith is about looking at a racetrack when your life is going 5,000 miles an hour. Faith is looking at that cruise ship and saying, look at my reward, for I have done well. Faith is about the hard times and the good times in life. Faith is about these wise men who traveled thousands of miles just to see this little baby, this Messiah that they knew was coming. You know, as we think about our faith, we think about our struggles. We think about those things that we've had happen in our lives, things that are out of our control. But our faith, our belief in Jesus Christ is what brings us together. Our faith is what gets us through that journey. It's what gives us the confidence to live every day. Yes, we've been beaten down. We've been persecuted. We've been lied about, talked about, chatted about, stabbed in our back. So what? Jesus' Sermon on the Mount said, be glad. Be glad about it. Rejoice about it. Because your reward is not here. Your reward is in heaven. You know, as I think about those wise men, as they came to bring gifts, the wise men had confidence, didn't they? They had belief in their faith. They remained strong. They remained focused. Even though their journey was hard, it may have been difficult, they persevered and they got through it. Because they knew that gift of Jesus is what they were seeking. And I pray for everyone here that we follow that same star. You know, we put that star on our tree every year, don't we? But do we think really about what that star means? And the lives of people who followed that star faithfully. These wise men were very wise in their faith and their commitment. And I hope you all